Hey howdy hey, welcome back to Trek on the Tube and welcome back to another Star Trek review. Today we're talking about Lower Decks Season 3, Beware, there will be spoilers. If you want to check out my previous reviews for the previous seasons of Lower Decks, feel free to do so. I'll put some links in the description, Season 1, Season 2. Also, if you want to support the channel, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share, do all of those wonderful things. It really helps me out. Sorry, excuse me, yes, I'm sorry to interrupt your regular viewing here, but, Fancy Toddy is here to tell you about today's sponsor. Yes, that's right, this is an ad segment. Can you believe it? Yeah, that's right, Fancy Toddy, how'd you like the look? No, we're sponsored today by the maltshopmedia.com. This is a Starfleet boy company, so you know, we're not too far away from home. We know the guy, we love the guy, he's got his own company. It's based in sunny Miami, Florida, and he's there for you. He's there for you, he's there for me, he's there for everyone. Photography, design, technology coaching, podcasts, and YouTube support. He can help you with that. He has a wide variety of knowledge. He's a very knowledgeable person, and he's a great friend, and I can tell you, both on a professional and personal level, that you will absolutely have a great time working with him. So yeah, absolutely do go check him out. Do go check out the maltshopmedia.com. I think the site is under construction at the moment, but you can put in that email address, punch it in, and he will definitely send you an email once the website is up and running. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy, I'm so proud to not only know this guy, but to be sponsored by him, and to see that he has a new company. Thank you for your time. Alright, so without any further ado, let's get right into this. For starters, the animation is, as usual, stunning. It has been ever since the show's very first episode, and that continues on to this day, so I feel like I need to keep on saying it. The detail and love that goes into the character design, the sets, the props is just, I mean, it's too great to describe. Every single element is beautifully designed, balancing the simplicity and to-the-pointness necessary in animation with the established aesthetic of existing Star Trek. It's actually quite wonderful to behold and impressive that the team is able to convey so much of the Star Trek visual language in so few details. And that's without even mentioning the additional lighting elements, the floating particles, etc. that all add to the richness of the environments. You also gotta respect the show for blending both traditional 2D animation with the more modern 3D renders, even if it isn't always the most seamless of integrations. Honestly though, any kind of critique I could have in terms of visual quality is nothing more than nitpicks. There's no other way to put it. The show looks great. And the show also sounds great. Not only is the score engaging and exciting, but the various returning themes help further the musical ambition of the franchise by tweaking previously used melodies and adding new ones. All of the sound effects, from the turbo lifts to the warp core hums, are immaculate. And then there's the voice acting. Like, MVP is Eugene Cordero this season for delivering some of the most nuanced performances I've heard in an animated sitcom ever. But I genuinely think every single voice actor is killing it. There's very rarely someone who feels a little weaker, and when that is the case, it's usually just a guest. In Season 3, however, I got nothing to complain about. All the performances were fantastic, balancing the emotional needs of every line with the fast-paced delivery necessary for the format. I think you can probably tell by now I'm still a fan of the show. I mean, I loved this thing from the get-go. The moment it hit the internet, I was absolutely in love with it, and my enjoyment for the show has remained strong ever since. I did want to make that very clear before we jump into this next part, because maybe my criticism, I don't know, maybe it'll come across a little mean. I hope not. Please do take into consideration I love this show. Because yeah, as we move away from the more technical aspects and start getting into, I'm gonna say, the narrative-related decisions, I do find myself saying that, in my opinion, Lower Decks Season 3 is the weakest season so far, or perhaps the most uninspired. Hear me out. I feel like the show has established its identity and solidified its character dynamics over these past years, and now it's simply stuck to that. You know, the show has found its groove. It actually found its groove pretty early, out the gate even. So like by now it knows exactly what it wants to do, it knows where it wants to go, and it also knows what people want from it. But because of this, in some respects, I can't help but feel like Season 3 was not only a little safe, but also pretty baseline in terms of Lower Decks. I know, I'm not making a lot of sense, but it's difficult to describe the sentiment, I think. What I'm trying to say is the elements that make up a Lower Decks episode are all present throughout the season, but very rarely do we go above and beyond those elements. Now don't take this the wrong way though, as I said earlier, like I don't hate the show at all, because basically what I'm saying is most episodes are 7s, out of 10, with only a few hitting those 9s and 10s, so believe me, this ain't no hate, don't get it twisted. And come on, I'm not trying to pretend like the whole thing is forgettable. There are some episodes, most notably the Deep Space Nine one this season, and the Peanut Hamper one, that will go down as extremely memorable Lower Decks adventures, even if one of those two was a bit controversial. I will, however, give you a couple examples of things that bothered me, just so that we can all kind of understand where I'm coming from when I say that the season played it safe. Every single thing on this show is always a joke. Now stop. Don't start aggressively hitting your keyboards telling me, about this specific moment or this, particular scene that isn't a joke and that took itself seriously. You understand what I mean. Generally speaking, this show has trouble taking itself seriously. And 90% of the time, it works. Comedy is the genetic makeup of the show. But when you make a joke about Captain Freeman being incarcerated after setting up this thing as a dramatic finale for Season 2, I can't help but feel disappointed on multiple levels. Yes, I understand the want and need to make jokes, but for starters, disregarding the previous season's cliffhanger entirely, just for comedy's sake, is kinda cheap. Also, it's becoming a standard part of the Lower Decks formula, so subverting expectations would actually be better accomplished by not trying to subvert expectations, if that makes sense. Point is, we've done this before, but better. Shax died and came back. It was surprising because it was the first time the show undercut a finale. It was a joke, but it also was a play on a common Star Trek trope of bridge officers just coming back from the dead without the crew necessarily being informed. So at least the undercutting had a purpose, whereas Freeman didn't. It was just, I guess, a joke, but, we've seen it before. Second, and I'm really not the person that should be addressing this, so take it with a grain of salt, but isn't arresting Freeman by mistake a little insensitive? Like, black people in the US have it pretty fucking tough in terms of, unjustified prolonged incarceration. And I get that our 24th century Star Trek universe isn't an exact replica of our world today, but come on. If you're gonna do a story about a black character being arrested even though they're completely innocent, at the very least, turn it into an inspirational, socially driven plotline of some kind that points out the real world issues. Don't just make it a dismissive joke that undercuts the previous season's finale. And then of course, our second example of the show playing it safe, and in some ways losing its edge, is Mariner leaving for nothing. Leaving Starfleet, that is. The show makes a huge deal about her departure, desperately and quite obviously trying to make the audience believe the departure, but then just reels it back and doesn't follow up on it. I guess this somehow qualifies as character growth in the grand scheme of things, but where the show has continued to enhance and advance the stories of Boimler, Rutherford, and Tendi, it's sadly started spinning its wheels when it comes to Mariner. Her figuring out why she wants to stay in Starfleet feels like an early season plot point, not a season 3 one. By now, I was expecting a visible decline in her reckless behavior, or perhaps some clever way of integrating her style with that of Starfleet's, but hey, gotta hit those classic Lower Decks comedy beats where Mariner goes against the grain. That's what we're good at, so that's what we'll give him. Alright, let's move on. You get it. You get my point. There are a few things that disappointed me this season, and those were 2 examples from a, admittedly, longer list. But then again, playing it safe with a successful formula delivers successful results. So even if I do rant about, specific things, let's not overlook all of the awesome that we got along the way. Bold Boimler was one of the most in-character ways to make him do out-of-character things. It was very clever. Tendi's challenging experience with stereotypes and assumptions, I think, spoke to many in this world today. Rutherford and his implant backstory are building towards toward something I just can't wait to learn about. I cannot wait to learn more about that story. And when it comes to, the episodes themselves and their concepts, yeah, they did well balancing the completely nuts personality of Lower Decks with the more serious tone of the franchise, as well as delivering as much new stuff as cleverly integrated classic stuff that we've seen before. A couple quick bullet points about things that I quite enjoyed throughout the season. Yes, the Deep Space Nine episode is fantastic. The whole second movie, the Crisis Point thing, I love that. Visually, it's stunning, and frankly, they did a very good job at making the sequel actually meaningful, which, doesn't always happen, especially in real movies. The clever utilization of classic Star Trek species and elements to create the nightmare kind of fuel thing on the planet. That was fun. The whole thing where our favorite Lower Deckers learn to appreciate Delta Shift, for who they are. That was a fun little interesting story too. Our boy, Sulu came back to do a cameo, which was absolutely amazing. No, seriously, this season had quite a lot to offer. And yeah, I know everyone's dying to hear about this. What did I think of the Peanut Hamper episode? I think it's probably the best episode of the season. I'm sorry, I know it's a very controversial thing. I think that, yeah, the episode did cross a few lines. What do I mean by that? Well, I guess everyone has their personal vision of what Star Trek is and how Star Trek should be, and I think everyone has their own kind of like concept of which line to cross and not to cross. Some people think that changing a Klingon is a line that you cannot cross, and some people think that there are no lines, and that Star Trek is science fiction and you can have the fun that you want with it. I feel like sometimes in terms of, vulgarity, not necessarily like too gore or too sexual in itself. I think it's just the way that you approach it. Sometimes that can go over the line, or at least what I consider to be the line. But yeah, so, Badgie, I've talked about this at length in Season 1 and Season 2. Badgie, I feel like, kind of crosses over that line. And, a couple of the scenes, maybe one in particular, maybe crossed a bit of a line there, in terms of what I expect Star Trek to deliver, but it still is probably one of the most creative and out-of-the-box episodes I've seen in a long time in Star Trek, and especially it was definitely that for Lower Decks Season 3, so I congratulate the episode. And hey, you know what? I just have to live with the fact that Lower Decks sometimes challenges my idea of what the line is. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is. Sometimes I feel like they cross the line, but maybe my idea of what the line is incorrect. And yeah, that's about it. I'm sorry for spending too much time on those negatives, but criticism takes more time than praise because you have to justify yourself, etc., etc. That's why I wanted to add a couple bullet points about things that I enjoyed. But anyway, everything this show delivers, from the animation to the score, from the voice acting to the sci-fi concepts, the directing, the editing, it's all solid. It's all, solid, fantastic work. And Season 3 is no exception. It's a show crafted by talented individuals that I want to see continue to live and prosper. The show. I was talking about the show. I want the show to continue to live long and prosper, but the people too. The people making it too. I want everything and everyone to live long and prosper. God damn it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I feel like this was a short review, kind of to the point, but yeah, at least that's good. Check out the rest of the channel for, short, informative, simplified videos about Star Trek. If you're new to the franchise, welcome. Join us, the Trekkies. No, I've got some videos explaining more about, the lore, the canon of Star Trek, the general story, and species, so feel free to go check that out. And as usual, a big thanks to the channel patrons. You're the best, you help me carry on, and to everyone, live long and prosper.